Chapter 93. The Loss-Fixing Pearl. Gu Hai and Fairy Wan stepped out of the mountain villa. At that instant, countless eyes in all directions lit up and their complexion was uplifted. "It's okay for us to go out just like that, isn't it?" Fairy Wan was worried. "It's only safe to go out like this," Gu Hai laughed. The duo hailed a fairy crane car, paid the spirit stones, and headed towards the south of the city. Swoosh! The immortal crane car departed, and all the strongest people in the four directions, all the way to the road, moved after them. Li Shenji stood on top of the floating island and watched Gu Hai and Fairy Wan leave. His eyes narrowed slightly. Not only has Gu Hai's cultivation increased, but this Fairy Wan's cultivation seems to have increased as well. Li Shenji turned his head to look at a floating island in the distance. That floating island was exactly where Xiong was. With Xiong's vindictive character, you set him up like this. He's not a good person. After guarding you for 10 days, it's time to strike, right? If you get killed again, it's none of my business, hehe. Li Shenji revealed a cold smile. Sure enough, above that floating island, Xiong instantly saw Gu Hai and Fairy Wan come out. "Who is that woman?" Xiong raised an eyebrow. "It's the demoness that the king was going to shoot not long ago, who was saved by Ziwei and Chongsheng, and wrote about chivalry," a guard explained. "That's her. Why is she at the ancient sea villa? When did she enter?" Xiong was surprised. "I don't know. HMPH. Couldn't care less. Since Gu Hai came out. It couldn't be better. You keep an eye on him. I'll ask Mr. Dongfang to catch up with Gu Hai together, and then find a secluded place to kill him." Xiong's eyes narrowed. "Yes." One of the guards immediately flew off into the distance. The other guard flew towards a building not far away with Xiong. "Young prince, what is that Mr. Dongfang's origin? Why is he helping us?" That guard was curious. "I don't know. That Mr. Dongfang came to me on his own initiative. He's a VIP of father. He seems to have a grudge against Gu Hai as well. He just happens to be looking for me. So let's work together," Xiong coldly said. Yes, Gu Hai came out. The shuttle city was in the middle of the city. News traveled quickly to the four directions. Mo Mansion. Mo Yoka was dealing with business when he heard the news and abruptly changed his face. "My lord, my subordinate doesn't understand. When did that Fairy Wan appear at Mr. Gu's villa?" a subordinate said in disbelief. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." Mo Yoka's face changed. "What's wrong? Long when you left a long time ago. He's not at the ancient sea villa anymore." Mo Yoka revealed a trace of bitterness. Qin Mansion. When Qin Zibai heard the news, he was also slightly stunned, but his father, who was blind on the side, abruptly changed his face. "Good old Gu Hai. Indeed he has a good mind." The blind old man laughed bitterly. "Father, what happened to Gu Hai?" Qin Zibai said in disbelief. "He thought farther than me or long when you sent away earlier. Alas, we were still thinking about how to test him. Yet he did everything perfectly." The blind old man laughed bitterly. "No or, father, 10 days ago. It wasn't county head when you..." Qin Zibai frowned. "That was Fairy Wan. The Qin Dao has reached a certain level and can mimic sound, don't you know?" The blind old man smiled bitterly. "Then what should we do now? Break into the ancient sea villa?" Qin Zibai frowned. "That's just it. Since they've left, the ancient sea villa has no value. However, the two of them, Ancient Sea and Fairy Wan, left alone. There must be a reason. Try to find out," the blind old man said in a deep voice. Yes, south of the city, on top of a floating island. Gong Yongsheng frowned as he looked at the four-sided pattern of Metropolis City. A square table in front of him, and around the square table, piles of manuscript paper filled with patterns. Looking at the patterns and comparing them to the surrounding terrain, Gong Yongsheng fell into deep thought. Next to him stood Long Shengwu. "Lord Gongyang, Can you unlock this 9-9 sealed Yonggran formation? Long Shengwu curiously said. Gong Yongsheng shook his head. It's almost there. I can project that it's near here, but it's not clear where exactly it is near here. Oh, not underground. Not underground. It should be similar to the small space that sealed the soul of the great slaying saint, also or called the small world. It's just that this small world is subtle, and not knowing the entrance, you won't be able to find it at all. Gong Yangsun frowned. The entrance is around here. Long Shenwu's eyes narrowed slightly. That's right. Gong Yongsheng nodded affirmatively. Speaking of small world entrances, last time, the place where you were imprisoned, wasn't it also a small world entrance? We were not able to enter the underground palace, but in the end, it was Ancient Sea that saved you. Could it be that Ancient Sea was able to find the entrance to the small world? Long Shengwu frowned. Him? Hey, impossible. Gong Yongsheng shook his head. Oh, then how did he get you out? Long Shengwu frowned. Gong Yongsheng frowned slightly. Speaking of which, this was also something that Gong Yongsheng couldn't figure out. Lord Gongyong, don't underestimate this Gu Hai. This person cannot be measured by common sense. Long Shenwu shook his head and sighed. Gong Yongsheng frowned. The art of the 9 palaces is the most difficult type of art nowadays. It requires a lot of accumulation in order to see the key. The Great Yuan Imperial Dynasty. Why is it imprisoned in me? Is because of the entire Great Yuan. There is no one who understands the art of the 9 palaces. I can understand it, and I'm confident that even if Gu Hai's talent is superb, it's impossible for him to understand the art of the 9 palaces, and it's even more unlikely for him to find the entrance to this 9-9 sealed sun's formation before I do. Entrance. Oh, Divine Martial King frowned slightly. Report. Steeply, a night god guard flew onto the floating island. Your Majesty and Lord Gongyang, First Grade Hallmaster Gu Hai and Ferry Waller arrived at a nearby valley. That night god guard respectfully said. Oh, where? The Divine Martial King was puzzled. The night god guard pointed to the distance. The crowd stood on top of the floating island, looking down, and immediately saw a mountain forest in the distance, where Gu Hai and Immortal Wunner stepped off the Immortal crane carriage and walked towards the interior of the mountain forest. Surely it's him. He's finally willing to come out, after 10 days of healing in the mountain villa. Long Shenwu frowned as he looked into the distance. 10 days. Sheriff Wenyu should be safe as well. Gong Yongsheng nodded. Do you know what Gu Hai is doing here? Long Shengwu asked. Don't know. Didn't mention it to any of us before coming. Night Divine Guard said in a deep voice. The Divine Martial King was slightly stunned and looked at Gong Yongsheng. Lord Gongyong, could that Gu Hai have the same purpose as us, too? Impossible. He doesn't know the art of the 9 palaces at all. How could he possibly find the entrance? Metropolis, if anyone can find the entrance, it's only me. Gong Yongsheng immediately said with a confident face. But you projected near here, and he, Gu Hai, also inexplicably arrived nearby. Or Divine Martial King frowned. I was able to find the vicinity, but I went through countless calculations and projections to find the approximate range. If he was able to find the entrance to the 9-9 sealed sun formation, wouldn't that be proof that my studies were all acts of folly? Gong Yongsheng said with a face of disbelief. Boom. Steeply, where the valley where Gu Hai was, there was a loud bang. The earth trembled violently, and suddenly, in that one direction, it seemed as if a black hole was formed, swallowing countless items in all directions. Rolling gale force winds, and whistling towards the entrance that suddenly appeared. With a loud bang, the entire metropolis city was violently shaken. Lord Gongyang, Hallmaster Gu, he found the entrance. The Night Divine Guard on the side was surprised. Long Shenwu looked at Gong Yongsheng oddly. Gong Yongsheng, but it was Gu Hai and Fairy One who arrived at the land of that valley. Here, this place is quite ordinary. Gu Hai frowned. It can't be wrong. The canonical records of the manifestation of longevity Taoist sect are here. Wait, I'll take out that thing, Fairy Winner solemnly said. Oh, Gu Hai nodded. However, he saw Fairy Winner reciting words under her breath and clicking her finger in the void hundreds of times. Each time it clicked, the void was slightly lit up, and soon, the last click came down, buzz. In the void in front of the duo, a large amount of white light steeply emerged. However, it was a white bead floating in the air that was blooming with dazzling white light. This is... Gu Hai looked at the bead in surprise. The entrance of the 9-9 sealing formation. The fixed lost bead of my Tai Shong lineage was used to make the source of the seal. The function of the fixed lost bead, no matter what kind of changes in the surrounding terrain and landscape destroys the seal entrance, the fixed lost bead will be able to repair and restore it, Fairy Winner explained. Then quickly take it. There should be a lot of forces paying attention to the two of us coming out this time, Gu Hai said in a deep voice. Fairy Winner didn't use her hands to take it either, but opened her mouth and probed it to swallow it into her mouth. On the side, Gu Hai was slightly curious, but did not say anything. Instead, he saw that as Fairy Winner swallowed it whole into her mouth, her head was thrown back. The fixed lost pearl was removed. The moment the fixing lost pearl was taken off, that void revealed a bead-sized small hole, the void black hole in general. Within the black hole, a suction force was violently formed. Whew! The surrounding earth and rocks were immediately sucked in. Rumble! At once, the black hole grew bigger and bigger and bigger. Suddenly, it shook violently. A change came out of the hole, and the great formations that covered most of the city were all pulled and rumbled. And in an instant, the entire metropolis city was in a great earthquake. Boom! Tilde 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 tilde. Many of the houses that hadn't been repaired yet instantly collapsed once again. The black hole was getting bigger and bigger, and was crazily swallowing everything around it. Gu Hai and Fairy Winner stumbled and almost fell into the interior. The entrance to the 9-9 sealed sun formation, Gu Hai's face changed. Without the fixed damage pearl, it's completely broken open. Fairy Winner smiled bitterly. Not good, with such a big commotion. The city's absolute powerhouses will be arriving soon. Go, let's go. Gu Hai immediately pulled Fairy Winner and ran towards the periphery. Treasure is wanted by everyone, but one has to have the ability to enjoy it. The duo ran away, looking at a floating island not far away above. Gong Yongsheng was speechless again. Perhaps it really is a coincidence, Divine Martial King said with an odd expression on his face. Gong Yongsheng's face twitched. He had worked hard for 10 days and 10 nights to calculate this approximate location, but he had been unable to be specific about what location and was at a loss. Where did this ancient sea emerge as a demon? He came out for a spin and found it. Coincidence? Even a fool wouldn't believe that it was a coincidence. Coincidence can find the entrance. Coincidence can also open the entrance.